All righty. We are back for episode 11 with Jake Vermillion. And we're going to shoot it off with a quick bio background for those of you who don't know. Although after being at the gathering, I walked away feeling as though Jake knows every single human being in the mortgage business. But meet Jake, mortgage industry's caffeine-fueled strategist, part-time storyteller, full-time people person, a CMO of Mortgage Champions. He's fixed more broken sales processes than a home inspector on spring tours. Named 2025 Housing Wire Rising Star, Mortgage Maverick, and Top Voice, he peppers his content with real talk insights, aka profitability over production. He's the guy you'll find in open houses because real relationships are greater than Instagram likes, on stages sharing high touch strategies, or behind the scenes in his daughter's favorite holiday photo op. Jake, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was funny that it grabbed that one bit about your daughter's holiday photo op, and GPT even gave me a photograph of you and your daughter in a holiday photo. So there you go.
That's
How
right.
did GPT do?
I did great. It crawled my LinkedIn
did?
extensively. Yeah, it like had some history back there. It was all the way back in November, October, whenever
it's
Halloween takes
impressive.
place.
A lot of times it comes up. I forget who the guest was, but we had one guest who it turned out like in college they were like building hydroelectric dams and like rural India, and it like somehow it found that.
Yeah,
and I was like,
the guy
I was
from
like, there's no way
Mortgage.
this is true, and it sure enough, it turned out to be true.
Wow.
Jake's over here crushing it with his knowledge of the show, Andrew, and you're like, I don't remember. So let's go ahead and ask the question of Jake. What's your favorite podcast right now?
I'm on it, man. Living the dream.
So, Jake, for those who don't know you, how did you end up in the mortgage industry?
Oh.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it's a pretty straightforward answer. My dad has been in the business since 1983. He's been training, coaching, consulting, speaking, you name it, since 1995. So been around my entire life. I mean, I can remember being 10, 11 years old in his office in Grays Lake, Illinois, and would print off and pack his 3-ring binders for all of his training sessions that would get sent all over the country. So been around it my entire life, and, tried to escape it for a bit there. We've worked in nonprofits, did some financial planning, some other things, and ultimately just found my way back to the family business, and couldn't be happier.
Nice.
Jake, I actually had a Dale Vermillion one from Lending Tree that was a 3-ring binder, and it took me years to finally get rid of it. And I finally was like, okay, I have to. Anyway.
they float around, man. They last. We have people who, they'll bring us in to work with their company, and we'll just see them sitting on the desk or sitting on the console. It's like, oh yeah, Dale trained me back in 2002, whatever it was. Argent Financial. So yep.
So for those who don't know Mortgage Champions, could you talk a little bit about Mortgage Champions and what you guys are solving for and what you provide to the industry?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what we're solving for is underperformance in the loan officer role, and specifically for happier customers, right? My dad has architected an approach to selling that's not salesy. It's relationship first, and it's built around providing personalized solutions to every single customer. So we teach you how to build rapport, build trust, understand your customer enough that you can provide customized options, and then be able to deliver and keep that customer for life. So that's what we do. We often get lumped in sort of the coaching space, and we do have some coaching services that we offer on a month-over-month basis to people who choose to work with us. But we do work exclusively with teams and companies, so we're kind of an enterprise level solution. But yeah, we come in, we understand the entire organization, we consult at the C-suite on a monthly basis, and then just make sure that everyone is working together to make sure that customer is served. So not uncommon for us to see 2-3x results within 90 days or less, doing what we do. So
got it. Nice. Love it. So let's, we were talking before we jumped on, about, really the tech and LO world. And I have actually said this a lot of times. There are some people out there who don't agree with me, and I understand that, and that's fine. I am of the firm belief that particularly with AI, we're going to see more and more applications that are hyper focused on the LO component. I am someone who believes that AI is more than likely. I'm sure we'll see some instances of it, but I don't think it's going to replace LOs by any stretch of the imagination. I would actually argue that LOs are the safest in the mortgage stack, if you will, from a personnel standpoint.
I agree with that take.
When it comes to AI, right? And so I'm not going to pitch myself, but it's something that we think about a lot. PK's laughing at me. Well, we do. When I think about it, I think about the LOs, and I think about how do they approach technology, and what do they want. And so, what I'd love to start off with is like, what have you seen that is sort of the most critical piece of tech for LOs? Again, really focusing on, what you and your dad's approach is to the industry. If they're you could only have one piece of technology as an LO, what do you feel like that tech would be?
Oh gosh.
Sorry, not to put you on.
Well, it's just, we know how much goes into originating and manufacturing alone. I mean, there's so many touch points with technology all throughout the process. If you just have one, it has to be the LOS because you have to have the origination system, right? But let's set that aside and sort of, focus on like what functionally creates that rapport and that relationship with that customer.
Yeah, more on the sales. Yeah, that was where I was.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to either be the CRM, because that's what's going to keep you prioritized on communicating with the customer that you need to be communicating with at any given moment. And obviously, that assumes that CRM is doing its job, that it's good, that it's giving accurate information to that loan officer, that it has some automation built into the background to be able to make sure that customer profile is up to date and insightful. Second to that, I would maybe say like a pricing engine, right? Because ultimately, you as a loan officer, you have to be able to prove that you're giving the best possible solution for that customer based not just on their situation, but also based on their stated goals, because not everyone has the same goal, right? Some borrowers, I think we tend to assume every borrower wants the 30-year loan and the lowest payment. That's going to be true for a lot of them, but there are some who they really don't want to be in debt, or they're trying to align with a certain time frame. Maybe they want a 10 or 15 year. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So whatever tools you need to be able to mock up what it would look like to be able to show them, well, hey, here's an option that's going to maximize your cash flow. Here's an option that's going to get you out of debt faster. Here's an option that's going to, focus maybe more on taxes. Being able to do that and be able to show your expertise to that customer, that you've listened to what it is that they care about and been able to match that with like what they qualify for in terms of product and program, like that's what's going to set you above and beyond a lot of other loan officers who are just going to quote the same thing every single time, right? 30-year term, lowest rate possible, no conversation around down payment strategy or anything of that nature if it's a purchase transaction, for example, let alone on the refi side, all the things you could do with a cash out position. That's what's going to set you apart. So it's either the CRM to get you in front of that customer in the first place, or it's like that pricing engine visualization solution to be able to communicate clearly to a customer what you can do for them.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things I noticed, over the last year or so, and even Mason, PK, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I found that like with the AI revolution, right, is that naturally what has happened is it has created people starting to question the features and functionalities of certain technologies that maybe 2 years ago they wouldn't have actually thought about, or they wouldn't have actually questioned. And Mace, I am certain that you get this a lot. I'm not sure about PK, but we get a lot of people who come to us and be like, well, can you do X, Y, and Z? And we kind of chuckle because we're like, well, yeah, and we could have done that 5 years ago. Like, it's not even an AI thing that's needed from that perspective. But now all of a sudden, everybody is getting, I think, a lot more savvy in terms of the things that they're asking for, because AI is the first technology probably really since the internet that has had such a like sort of wide adoption, and everybody has like sort of run to it. So,
and it increases the capabilities of the vendors, because I think, Jake, you just said something. Anytime I've ever done a loan or helped people through a process, they show me the offers they've gotten from other LOs, and they've always gotten one offer, right? Most of the time it's just one. And like I built this little Excel document, and you put in the rate and the price and the term, and you copy and paste from the products. And I don't know why nobody's done this before, because as soon as I do this, I explain the mortgage. They drag the payment down, the closing costs go up. They drag the payment up, the closing costs go down. They're like, oh, and like they get it like that. And like instead of, and why hasn't nobody built that? Just to go to your point, Andrew, now that can be built. So
yeah, there actually is a product out there that does actually do LE comparisons for consumers as a consumer facing tool. So now I don't know what it is that, like, what's their calculus for determining what's the better LE? Is it always just what it perceives to be lowest price? And is that actually best for the customer? You know, I would say maybe not, but someone's thinking about it. So
yeah, I think that's a PETA fee analyzer.
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, I would assume it's basically just total cost, you know. So, but Andrew, to your point of like, there's sort of this like marketing veneer that's happening right now. I think it's interesting that you're saying like customers are leading this, but like companies are bringing out feature sets that didn't require AI, but they're like using AI as the excuse to actually. There's like a Samsung commercial right now, but like a washing machine that also can dry clothes. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, why do you need AI to do that? Like, what? That has nothing to do with anything, you know? But,
no, absolutely, 100% not, right?
I think it's like people just got like it just kind of like put the creativity thinking cap on, where it's like oh, what can I do and what can't I do?
Yeah.
Whereas before people just assumed the vendors would tell them what they can and can't do. Now it's like I think the lenders or the downstream clients are empowered to ask those questions themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'd be curious, like, to hear what you guys are seeing and thinking, but like, so, you know, Samsung, a washing machine doesn't have to just be a washing machine now, right? Like a CRM, like is this what you're hearing is like lenders are asking, okay, well, so we're manually inputting customer data into a CRM. We're expecting our loan officers to be able to update it. Why can't it be so much more than that? Why couldn't an AI be sitting in, you know what I mean, in every omnichannel interaction and be logging and creating insights on a customer, for example, or even enriching that customer's profile with third-party data that we could connect to it, so we have a better insight even before a first point of contact. I mean, as soon as that customer is identified, you know what I mean, that we can begin to source information about them that might be helpful to the loan officer, for example, to build rapport. Yeah, I think those are. Is that the kind of use case that you're seeing people start to dream bigger?
At least in our space, it's like a lot of the pushing data is really just like API. There's no like AI really. You can also add some color there if you're seeing something differently, but it's really just connecting, you know, two systems together with APIs that exist, and that was fragmented or was not connected before. It's like, oh, like you can to put these things together. If you want to label call that AI, I guess you can, but really it's just like simple existing code base.
And it's a fair question of if that's the first sort of win in the customer's mindset is just using what already existed with just APIs.
Right.
What can you do as the vendor now to then actually add some intelligence at that point of integration to provide even more context, if that makes sense?
Yeah, there's like, a lot more you can do. Yeah,
1 + 1 = 2, or 3. You know, not just 2. Yeah. Interesting.
I still think the CRM. I am waiting for the CRM killer. Like, to me, AI, and I've talked about this probably ad nauseum, but I still think there's such a huge opportunity because, you know, I spent, you know, a decent portion of my life on the business development side. And I always joke that, like, show me a business development person who's good at CRM, and I'll show you a bad business development person. And I'm kind of joking, but like I've always noticed like top performers in that space tend to be really bad about updating.
Yeah, they're just talking to the customer. They're just hunting for their referral partners, whatever it is that they're doing. Yeah, they're just doing it well.
I'm waiting for the AI agent that just listens to all of my phone calls, reads all of my emails, and tracks everything for me, and then goes, "Hey, you know, you haven't called Jake in a week. You really need to follow up with Jake."
That's right.
And it starts having that conversation with me rather than me having to log into HubSpot and be, you know, go through, you know, I mean, HubSpot tracks my emails, but you know what it also does? It creates clients that aren't real clients. So it's like, it's not quite at where it needs to be. And it'll be kind of interesting to see. What I'm interested to know from you though, is on the CRM front, right? Because I would argue that I think you're pretty spot on. Like if we're just if we were really to say like, okay, there's only one tool for the LOs, but knowing that we can kind of reimagine, what are the things that you feel like maybe are missing today from CRMs that, for anybody, hey, any CRM, providers out there, pay attention. Is there anything in particular that you feel like could kind of be added to the process right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing that tends to be missing, and to some extent, it's not necessarily CRM's fault, because bad data in, bad output, it's like, or just no data, no output. So, there's sort of a data problem that I feel like needs to be solved. I'd be curious if you guys agree on that front. But assuming you've got good data in the CRM, like, what's the functionality that's lacking? I think where we're tending to see a lot of mistakes being made strategically by loan officers and by lenders is their CRMs are moving into this sort of MarTech space, where it's, okay, we now know that you should be following up with this customer. Instead of assuming that you're going to do so or queuing you to do so, we're just going to do it for you, right? Automated text messages, automated emails, and there's an element of that is helpful, especially when you're talking about sort of transactional interactions with that customer, right? We need a document uploaded. We need to send you a disclosure, whatever it is, right? But what you're oftentimes seeing is that the loan officers are loading those key touch points to be able to continue to build rapport and keep a customer in process and actually get to the closing table, to automated drips, nurture campaigns, whatever it looks like to them, even just status updates. And you're starting to see rising fallout, So the CRM and honestly, it's not rocket science. Like, to PK's point that throughout this conversation, like, we haven't needed AI to solve this problem. It's really actually partnering with that loan officer to really keep them at highest and best use at all moments. And we always see that highest and best use as not sort of all the menial things of entering data in the CRM or like working up the loan options. You know what I mean? It's actually sitting with that customer and communicating with them and helping guide them through this homeownership process or this refinance process if they're already an existing homeowner. So
it makes sense. And the one question I have, okay, so Mace is obviously from the front end originations world. Obviously, Jake, you spent a fair amount of time in it. PK's probably got a little bit more experience than me. I'm like the least, right? Like, I'm pure capital markets for most of my life. Although PK is fairly cap markets as well. Ish. The one thing
we have the smart guys, and then we have like the people guys. I got it.
I'm really neither. So let's see how that works. One of the things that I've just never understood, like, I have bought and sold a lot of homes over the years, right? And the one thing I always joke about is I've never once ever had an LO who I closed a loan with ever reach out to me ever again. Ever again. It is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And this is an area where I feel like AI can maybe step in here and help with LOs, because to me it's like, I closed you. Like, you're now, and granted, I understand that it may be a hot minute, but how hard is it to send me an email once a quarter?
Exactly. Yeah. And this is where I think the queuing is really important versus the automating, because I think it's not a BS filter, but like the ChatGPT filter for humans is only going to get better. Like, we're already pretty good at sniffing out what's actually written by a person and what's not.
Right.
I think that's only going to get better as time goes on. And so if you really like, what's the point of sending an email or making a phone call once a quarter? Is it to provide information, or is it to build relationship?
Top of mind.
Yeah, it's to build relationship, right? So it's like, if there's any sense from that customer of you didn't do the thing that is like the whole point of you doing this thing in the first place, right? Which is to show that you actually care about me by taking the time yourself to pick up the phone or to draft a quick text message or an email that I know came from you and not from an automated campaign or an AI agent that's working on your behalf. You know what I mean? Then, like, what's the point? So I think you're getting to sort of a broader issue, talking about CRM, but it applies to other systems as well, of everything is moving toward, let's operate off of customer intent. But the problem that you have if you operate in that modus operandi is that everything becomes transactional at that point, right? You're just trying to chase signals of intent to transact. you're not actually continuing to just build relationship and invest in customer lifetime value, right? So we want to see better data. We want to see better predictive analytics. We want to see like better, more holistic priority queues for who loan officers should be communicating with at any given moment. But it can't be entirely based on customer intent. It has to be based on like a broader intelligence that incorporates relational capital and whether or not you're investing in that account or you're depleting it over time and you're hitting a critical threshold where you no longer have a lasting rapport with that customer and they're more likely than not to transact with another lender next time. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. But I think Mace hit it when he said top of mind, right? Is like, if I all of a sudden put my house on the market tomorrow, right? Now, number one, if the LO is not paying attention, the LO who closed my last loan, right? Who I won't name the originator, but he's anyways, but if all of a sudden I put this house on the market, right?
You get a call.
And here's what's hilarious. When we bought this house, like this is a 7-year house, right? Like I don't tend to own. This home will be the longest home I have ever owned in my life. If I make it to the 7-8 year mark, right? So again, I'm somebody you might want to pay attention to.
You match the data point. I'm sure Jake will tell you that's the key cutoff of marketing to people, the 7-year mark.
Oh, is it? Okay. I tend to be in that like 3 to 4 year mark, but anyways.
Most people, no matter how much that you're talking about getting your loan, they're like, no, this is my lifetime home. It's like, okay, but just hypothetically, left in 7 or 8 years.
Well, I looked it up real quick, and according to this, historically the average length of home ownership in the United States was 6 to 8 years. That has increased apparently to 13 years. So, which I find it fascinating. I would have thought it would go down, not up, but if I go to sell my house again, if you are my LO, like there should be systems out there that track to that and immediately alert you, hey, and you closed Andrew's loan 5 years ago and he put his house on sale, right? Now, if you all of a sudden contact me for the first time in 5 years, I'm not going to have any clue who you are. I can't tell you the name of the person who was my LO on the house that I live in right now, right?
Yep.
But if that person had contacted me each quarter with something informative about me, right? And again, for anybody out there who owns a CRM company, the DK and Mace and I are not going to build this. So, some mechanism in it, right? That is tracking to, and now with AI, right? Like perfect example is literally all I did was feed GPT your LinkedIn page, right? It immediately came up with a bunch of different things. It really isn't that hard with AI to, once you've created your customer profile, to be able to run informative background. I mean, most people, particularly Americans, live like we gave up privacy like a decade or two ago. I love when people try to talk about privacy. And it's like, you can go online and I can, through social media and other things, I could probably find, I know they're outliers.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably find out a fair amount about you. So anyways, sorry for my rant.
And I think those sorts of data points, right? Like a customer's social media feed, if you're able to crawl it, for example, right? In an intelligent way to be able to seed like relevant conversation with a customer because you already are in a rhythm of keeping up with that customer post-transaction, okay? You have more permission from that customer to broach them about what it is that they put on their own social medias than you do trying to explain why that their credit was pulled or that their house was put in the MLS or that they had a job change. You know what I mean? Like some of these other triggers, right, that we're sort of heavily reliant upon in this industry, they're just not as smart or as relational as other triggers that we could use within sort of a consistent outreach to be able to just approach that conversation. Hey, Mike, and again, if you've set this expectation of when you first sell the loan, you're going to be calling them on a regular basis and just explain, right? Look, I consider my responsibility as your loan officer to be constantly watching the market because the market is always changing. But here's the thing. Life is always going to be changing for you as well. And so we're going to have to, I just want to be checking in on a regular basis so that I can understand. I'm going to update you on what's changing in the market to make sure that we're on track with your home plan. If there are any opportunities that we have that we can take advantage of, we can do that. We can talk about what that would look like for you guys. But I also want to be able to understand what's changing in your life to make sure that, if something else is disrupting the plan that we put together, we can make adjustments as needed, right? Super simple explanation of why you're going to be keeping up with that customer over the long haul. When you then go to actually make that, make that call, and you don't need an AI, honestly, to do this right now. It's not that hard to find that customer on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And just see their daughter just had, a daddy-daughter date or whatever it was, right? And just to be able to call and say, hey, I told you that I was going to be, updating you on the marketplace. Here's where we're at. I'd love to know what's new in life. It looked like you had a great time at the daddy-daughter date the other day.
Right. I mean, great example is like if you didn't connect with your borrower on social media when you were literally having conversations with them nonstop, like again, not an LO, so I don't know if they do this or not, but like if I was, closing Chris on a loan, I would be connecting with his Instagram, his Facebook, his LinkedIn, and then put that into a tracker to your very point. Like, oh, so you saw the pics of your daughter's birthday. Looked like an amazing time, whatever that may be. So,
and I also think you have to do customer. You have to tailor it to the customer because, like, I'm not a boomer like Andrew. Like, don't do this. like if I got a text,
got him.
It just because like my bank Chase reached out to me the other day and was just like, hey, we see that there's some money. Would you like to come over here? And I was like, no. I was like, I can go get better places for that. But even if it's just a text, it's just like, hey, just touching base, see if there's any interest in potential. Because there's people like me, they're like, I don't want to know my loan officer ever again until I go to buy a house. Like, I don't want to talk to him. Andrew, though, the boomers are like, hey, how's it going? But anyway.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am the youngest looking boomer ever. If that is the case.
Oh, and looks like we've got Kelly Yale here. Oh, I wish we could have her give thoughts on CRMs. She's
Yale. We have to get Yale on. We have to get Yale on this show.
You want to take this conversation to the next level? Like she is so like the OG, literally.
So let's pivot a moment away from that. From CRM. And what I'd love to know is what technology do you feel like doesn't exist that the LOs could really, benefit from? Again, I am a strong believer. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old son, and I constantly talk to them about networking and storytelling. And I'm like, those are the two things that you should be hyper focused on right now. When I look 10 years out, I think that will be, I don't know who Kelly hates. Kelly, who do you hate?
She's talking about herself.
Are you talking about yourself? So with that, that's why I say, like, I think AI is going to I think we will have fewer LOs, but the great LOs will just crush. They will do incredibly well. So what else or what is missing that you feel like you'd love to see, built for the LOs?
Yeah, I mean, if I can be completely honest, I don't think anything is necessarily missing, to be honest. Like, I think you have more than enough technology to do your job. I mean, again, people were selling loans in 1983. And oftentimes they were selling more than the typical loan officer is selling today. Like, we've seen nothing but productivity actually go down in every single role in our industry over the last 20 years. BCG has written about this in their white papers. So,
right.
Of course, can I envision like technologies that leverage some of what we have available to us today in maybe slightly new or just better integrated ways? Of course. Yeah. I mean, don't we all want to get to the point where the loan officer literally does nothing but pick up the phone and have conversations with customers all day long, like from 9 to 5, and it's not these crazy hours. It's like 9 to 5. They just literally talk to customers and everything else is done in the background, right? Like the AI is just sitting on the call, listening to what's being said. It's logging the customer information to be able to complete loan application for the customer, to be able to pre-qualify them, be able to work up, suggested loan products and programs and pricing based on the conversation that's being had. And all of this is being done in real time to be able to inform that loan officer to have the most advisor-led conversation if they can with that customer. Like,
Right.
I think we all want to get there, but the technology exists for that today. It's just a matter of who can string it all together. And my understanding is, at least behind closed doors, some companies are working on that and they're getting close.
Well, Friday Harbor, I mean, shout out to Friday Harbor, who was on the show a few weeks ago. They do have a now I think it's in beta with few clients right now, but it is, and it takes the 1003 through a natural language conversation. Which,
yeah, that's right. And same thing. It could, if a loan officer, says, for example, like I know one of their feature sets is, oh, okay, well, we need a letter of explanation for this type of income, right? Like, I'm going to shoot you a text message right now. And I don't even know if it's the agent who does it, but it might even be automatically triggered by the agent. But at worst, it's like the loan officer clicks a button, link gets sent to the, borrower. They can literally scribble on a piece of paper, take a picture of it, get sent back to the loan officer. And there you go. You have a OCR LOE, you know what I mean? For any, some sort of abnormal piece of income that, again, the agent informed the loan officer, hey, based on the product that you're looking at, and the company overlay, like, you're going to need this, right? That just makes the loan officer faster, better, and not have to get off the phone with that customer. You know what I mean? They can just keep the conversation moving forward, which is huge. So, but yeah, I think this, like, if you're a loan officer and you're sitting around and you're saying, I can't do my job because I don't have the right technology, like, frankly, you just need to change your mindset. You can sell the crap out of loans with an Excel spreadsheet and a phone. I mean, honestly, like, my real answer to the question of what's the number one technology that you have to have as a loan officer, it's a phone. And it could be
or a car,
a dial phone, like whatever those things are called, like if you have that, you can sell loans, so.
I was going to make a Jerome Powell joke there, but
if you want some coaching around changing that mindset.
Real quick, by the way, nobody saw Patrick O'Brien's LinkedIn post. Anybody who's watching this, if you did not see Patrick O'Brien's from Loan Logic, his LinkedIn post yesterday about Jerome Powell, please go watch it. It is literally one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. I think I watched it about 16 times. Okay, so let's pivot away from there and let's talk about, you are a CMO, right? Of Mortgage Champions. Right. So can we talk a little bit about, tech that you're using and how is AI kind of showing up, in your world on the marketing side?
Oh, on the marketing side specifically.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, we're a little bit dinosaur there, man.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, no, that like we're if you see us put something out, like, we wrote it. We use it to, like, proof for grammar, it's helpful for, like, really simple things, but this is not rocket science of, like, we write a podcast description that's optimized for a podcast feed. We want to be able to have a description for the YouTube version of the same content. We just run it through an optimization so that it's got the YouTube vibe, right? But in terms of marketing, yeah, I mean, we really just haven't frankly leaned into it. And when I say that, like, the way that we're thinking about AI with our business, right? So keep in mind, like, we live and die by the results of our clients. Okay. So a huge component of us seeing success through our clients seeing success is ensuring that the upfront training of the strategies that we teach translates into actual behavioral change with conversations with customers and referral partners. Okay. So we have been strategically secret shopping or ingesting calls and scoring calls manually for our clients for years now. We now have the ability with AI to be able to do that at scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when we think of AI for our business, I mean, like, could we in some ways, like, sell out and leverage AI and be writing LinkedIn posts every single day? Yeah, totally. But I'll be honest, like, for us, and I think this is probably true for loan officers in a lot of ways as well. I think they probably have more applications of AI on the marketing side than we do, but I will produce more interest in our business and be able to serve more lenders by spending an hour and a half a day actually reading and watching what people have to say on LinkedIn and leaving thoughtful comments or asking intentional questions and sparking a conversation and getting to a point where we're doing this, right? We're one-to-one, we're face-to-face on Zoom or at a conference or whatever. Then if I posted something about the market that was kind of blasé anyways every single day because ChatGPT wrote it for me. Make sense?
Oh yeah, no, totally agree. It's interesting. We've talked about this a few times on the show of how AI in very many ways, I think it has pushed people in certain areas to much more analog, type of approach.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's a unique opportunity to differentiate in certain ways right now. Yeah, I mean, there's like I think even Kelly put in the comments when we were talking earlier about like what kind of emergent technology we would like to see in this industry, and she put reporting tech, consolidated data. Like that's more so the way that we're leveraging AI within our organization is like how can we take a bunch of data that we've gathered from our learning management system and from our Zoom transcripts with the clients that we're training and the consulting conversations that we have with their C-suite, and how do we port all that data into a single warehouse and then be able to run intelligence on it to be able to serve back more valuable insights to our customers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Kelly's spot on. Like the companies who can come in and provide better, more holistic insight that's actionable in real time to lenders, like that company's going to kill it, you know, and way more so than like someone who's just trying to like solve for, I don't know, like kind of canned social media content that's AI generated.
Right. No. Let's talk after this.
Also, I was just going to say, this kind of touches on the point Jake was making earlier about like the transactional touch points the loan officers can be making. So this is kind of related to like social media, but I don't know if you guys like when you guys are scrolling on like Instagram Reels or like TikTok, you have like an immediate innate sense that like, oh, this is like a sponsored ad, or this is like, you know, someone just pitching, and then you go, boop, I'm not going to watch this. And you just kind of skip through it. So it's like, like, I think people also have like a reflex of like, oh, this is AI generated, or this is just like, you know, their bullshit radars are more tuned in. So it's like, you learn to kind of just skip through that. And so if you end up having a reputation of, you know, you're just pumping out AI generated content, I think people naturally just be like, I'm not going to bother. Like,
I completely agree. And we don't know because they're black boxes, but I think the algorithms are already getting better. I see people complaining all the time that they're like, I'm only seeing content from 3 weeks ago on LinkedIn. It's like, yeah, probably because most of it is ChatGPT generated. They know it and they're not going to serve it. I don't know why else LinkedIn would be serving you 2-week-old content if it had quality human written content from today.
And lenders have to evolve with it, because how many lenders have been sending recipes? Okay, like I wish Kelly Heel was still in here, because she could lenders sending you a quarterly recipe as their touch point. But it is funny. Like I have used the dash in my emails and my text messages for my whole life since my wife has known me. And now she's giving me shit saying, "Oh, you've been an AI bot this whole time." And I was like, no, like, yeah, I'm having to stop using the dash because it's so.
That is so fun. Yeah, Chris, I have been a rabid M-Dash user for like forever. So I feel the same way. People are like, you know, they're probably looking at my content like, I'm like, no, I'm telling you, this is me, man.
I've never once ever thought to go and use that. And PK, the reason Chris and I were laughing,
I was gonna ask.
And I know. Chris was thinking, does Andrew even know what TikTok is? That's
weird. Andrew and I knew, but I was going to say, like, I don't know that Andrew's going through Reels too much, but.
No, actually, hilarious. And I need to do a post on this, but my phone is actually in grayscale. I've talked to this about a few people. I've largely abandoned social media and color on my phone. And if you switch your phone to grayscale, you never want to pick up your phone. You immediately just have no connection to it. So there you go. So Jake, on the AI front, okay, so you're not using it in the marketing. Are there ways that you do use it? And I'd love to hear both business and personal. I always love hearing different ways that people are using it.
Oh, I use it constantly personally. Yeah, I'm constantly the temporary chat feature has utterly replaced Google for me in ChatGPT. I don't know if you guys use that feature at all, but you can claim it won't save, so it's like it doesn't clutter up your threads with ChatGPT or whatever. But yeah, so like if it's like, oh, I need a barbecue recipe for, you know, I'm grilling out whatever, like, yeah, it's like no longer go to Google. Like you just go straight to the temporary chat. It's like, hey, what time and temp for, you know, this kind of meat, you know? So yeah, no, I use it all the time. I mean, I love, you know, building workouts with it, for example. I love using it with my daughter. Like we, you know, make coloring sheets in all the time. So yesterday, you know, we just sat there and made like 17 coloring sheets in a row. It's like, all right, now you're a princess on a unicorn with a palace behind you. And the next one, there's gonna be an airplane in the background, you know? So yeah, like all kinds of silly use cases. Business wise, really, I do try to think of it as an intelligence tool and like a research assistant. So where I will use it in marketing, if you will, is we'll run deep research prompts pretty often around sales performance tactics that are working, emergent technologies, new use cases of AI, for example, Fed policy. I mean, you name it. So, but we're using that as like a research team so that you can then get up to speed on what it is that you want to talk about and have realistic statistics. Now, it's going to give you outputs just like you would expect from like a research team, which is predominantly a bunch of interns. So like you've got to double check the work every time, and that's why it's like we don't fly with it, if you will, in marketing. Like we're not letting it write personalized emails. We don't have an AI powered chatbot operating on our website. We're not using it even to generate like graphics or PowerPoints. Like we want someone to know if they're doing business with us or they see something that we put out, like we've been behind it and we stand behind it, so.
You don't want to create an Ask Dale GPT.
We've been asked that. Maybe that's
thought about it.
Sure. Yeah, we could talk about it. So let me say this: the first problem with the idea of an Ask Dale ChatGPT is that you don't know what you don't know, and so there would have to be this incredible apparatus to train people to know what to prompt the GPT. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's like, at what point are you really eliminating, you know what I mean? Like work, if that makes sense, or does it just make more sense to continue to just in our own way, streamline what we do, make it like the most relevant things that you need to know right now based on the marketplace, get them through that as quickly as possible, and then focus more on that ongoing accountability to ensure that the behaviors are actually being executed in real time, and then prove back to that loan officer, hey, we told you if you did these things, like to trust us and that you would see more results. We've been tracking, you're doing those things, and let's compare that. Let's look at your results today versus 90 days ago, right? And if we can prove that there's a delta there, like that's what sort of cements it in the mind of the loan officer.
Yeah, I would say your model should be trained as more like have Dale ask me questions. That would
there we go.
Be like, what are you doing today? Have you called that borrower? A lot of these are very duh things. Dale's been saying the same thing since I was 20. I don't know, early 20s. Yeah.
This is like not his personality, but like Roast Me Dale would be like the website that I would make, where it's like upload what you think is your best call, and Dale will tell you like 100 reasons why you could have done better.
Well, I like what Kelly said, and it's kind of like where my mind went, which is like after every call, I could just give you if you guys are recording that, you guys can score it, summarize it, tell them what they did good, what they could do better immediately. Exactly. Keep that feedback loop really tight and shorten it. Versus, like
who was the guy doing that? PK, we had him on here that's doing that.
Oh, Craig. You talking about Craig?
Yeah. What's the company name?
Friday
Indy Mortgage.
Oh, Indy Mortgage.
Well, I don't think Craig's in that space. I'm thinking more so specifically in I was about to call you Vermillion. I was going to say Jake's use case is like more so like on the scoring and feedback, like coaching aspect of it.
Yeah, well, and honestly, a huge part of that use case is not just delivering feedback to the loan officer, because I mean, loan officers are people; they're salespeople. Like they have, they have to have an ego in order to be able to perform. They have to be able to believe in themselves, and so there's a natural discount that's going to happen with the majority of loan officers, where if you're telling them, like, we think you can improve these areas, that there's kind of like a, you know what I mean, like. I closed the deal, man. Like what are you barking at me for? Like I got the application or whatever it is, right? Because we're such a results-oriented business instead of an activities-resulted business, which is what we or oriented business, which is what we should be. Activities are going to drive ultimate production, right. But we'll justify bad behaviors because we occasionally get results. So it's not just delivering contextualized feedback to the loan officer, which we are doing, but it's delivering visualized data to the management layer and then the executive layer, and having some different ways of presenting that based on which level of the organization that end user is at. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Like that's exactly what we're building, and yeah, we're excited that hopefully we can be part of this future of making the loan officer be able to just do what they do extremely well, and then get very quick like feedback, and then just do it again. Like. It's this idea of like, if you split a class right at the beginning of the semester and you said half the class, I don't know, let's make pottery, right? Like you have to make pottery. Half the class, you have to make as many pots as possible over the course of the semester. If you get over 50 or whatever, you're going to get an A. The other half, it's like you have to make one pot, but it has to be perfect. Otherwise you like fail. It's like pass fail basically, right? Which of those two halves of the class do you think is going to have the better pot at the end of the day?
That first one.
Right.
The first one, right? Because why? They get reps.
They get their reps in. Yep.
That's exactly right. They're gonna have some really crappy pots, like some really, really bad ones. But ultimately, like they're gonna have better pots than that other cohort, because the other cohort, like they're gonna overthink it. They're gonna spend all this time like planning and preparing, and then execution is gonna like fail and always fall short. Like, yeah, it's the reps that matter. So it's like, how can we get loan officers more reps? You know what I mean? At a higher performance level, more consistently. Like, hopefully, we can be part of that solution. Is my goal.
Didn't you said something to me, I believe, at the gathering, and if I have this wrong, please correct me, but that oftentimes the highest producing LOs are the least profitable LOs within an organization, which blew me away. Like I was like, what? I'm like,
yeah, can you unpack that?
Yeah. So
can we kind of
the one thing I'll push back on there is oftentimes.
Okay,
we
my
do
bad.
see it.
My bad.
Yes,
thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so what you'll see in various. I mean, really, you see it both in retail and consumer, but depending on the channel, it's going to look a little different. But you will see high unit or high volume producers who have the highest expenses to bring about that production, right? So consumer rec, you're going to see a lot of lead churn. Okay, great, yeah, okay. They did 28 loans last month, but they bought 5 times as many leads as any other producer, right? So like the profitability, you would be better off having 12 unit a month producers, who their conversion rate is 3 to 4 times, possibly even 5 times this quote unquote top producer, right? And the retail side, what you tend to see more so is that, obviously it's not like structured lead costs. It's more things like, because they have a lot of volume, just to even bring them in, like you pay them additional compensation. Maybe you like gave away more on pricing to that loan officer because they, expected it, or they claim that their like past lender had better pricing. And so you're sort of conceding on price for them. You're paying for their office space. You're bringing in the expense of additional technologies that they claim they have to have in order to be able to perform. They require, more support staff. So they, instead of one LOA and one processor, they have multiple, like whatever it is. Like if you actually get down to true P&Ls at the loan level, the loan officer level, you can very quickly identify sometimes that, okay, yeah, this person, they're doing a lot of production, but they're not actually helping our team. They're actually sucking more resources than they're bringing back.
How many of the companies you work with actually know that until you give them an aha moment?
Oh, that's a good question. Some do. Yeah, some are doing P&Ls, but you still have to have that further conversation of,
But is it? It's not a majority. It's safe to say it's not a majority, correct?
Yeah, not a majority. And then, yeah, like I said, there's still that conversation of like, how long do you want to float this boat? Because sometimes, maybe it makes sense for a little while. They adjust and you're going to streamline costs over time. Like, there can be strategy around it. I don't want to give the impression that lenders are just like completely out to lunch and bringing people in just because they have, sometimes that's the case, but sometimes they understand what it is that they're buying into and they're hopeful they can make it profitable in the long run. But it's a calculus that every lender should be running, in my opinion.
Well, and I've had a discussion with PK about how many lenders don't understand their true cost to close a loan, and he was like, "Don't they all already know this?" And I was like, "You'd be surprised at how many don't." And he was like, "Really?" And then I was telling him, I know of a lender. I'm actually in their old building right now. That they lost a really high producing guy. I know you would know him, his name, Jake. And they were kind of distraught. And then like about 60 days later, they're like, we're actually just complete break even. Like we're not feeling him gone. Like we didn't lose, we didn't gain. We're not. We didn't realize that we weren't making any money off of that branch. Yep. And I was kind of surprised. I was like, "Don't you have a CFO?" But anyway,
but a lot of places don't look at the individual level. Like I even saw this on the cap market side, right, where it's like the CFOs will look at a client level, like again on the cap market side, but like. We'll look at all these different levels, but I remember, God, this was like early or mid late 2000s, and I was at a TPR, and I remember suggesting that we do individual profitability, and the COO there, like I felt like he was going to fire me because I brought this up, and I was like, what? Like I'm like. Why would I'm paying one person $35 an hour, somebody else $25 an hour, and they're producing the exact same amount. Like, we need to have a conversation. Like, why am I paying this person 15% more or whatever. More than that, but to produce the exact same amount. It just doesn't make any sense.
You at least have to arm yourself with the data, right? Because culture matters. Certain people you keep around because they've been there for forever. They've been loyal. You're going to pay them more as they're there for a longer period of time. Maybe their maybe their productivity can't go up. It's maxed out, but yeah, I mean, you can't stomach underperformers. And it's not just the top performers who you have this issue with. I mean, if you look at pricing concessions, for example, more often than not, a pricing concession is being requested by an absolute bottom of the barrel producer because they simply can't win. They're just not a good salesperson. And that's okay, but you need to be armed with that data to understand what it is that's costing you and to be able to have an honest, transparent conversation with that loan officer. Hey, this is why we can't continue to give you pricing concessions. You know what I mean? It's because we're not actually being profitable and we want to actually see you grow and be successful and not need pricing concessions. So what can we do to equip you to be able to have better conversations with your borrowers, build more referral partnerships, generate more business, get a better paycheck. You know what I mean? And if they don't want to have that partnership with you as a lender, then okay, bless them and send them on their way to a greener pasture,
Yeah.
Real quick, so I understand the context there. So is there certain models that work better than other when it comes to that profitability piece, or it just boils down to a situation by situation?
So you first of all have to fully understand what we're talking about, right? But then secondly, you have to focus on activities, not results. And as a leading indicator, you need to be looking at conversion. That's the number one thing you have to be looking at. If you're just looking at volume or units, you're going to continue to run into these problems. If you have high converting loan officers, you're not going to run into these problems. You're just not going to. It doesn't matter what channel you're in, right? On the retail side, there's the additional consideration of networks are incredibly important. You need to understand what a loan officer is telling you when they say that they have a network of referral partners. You need to know the number. You need to know the size of business that they're giving them on a regular basis. You need to know the diversity of those referral partners, okay? So if a loan officer just says, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of realtors who send me business all the time, you need to actually understand what that is before you decide that you're gonna bring them into your organization, because oftentimes that's not necessarily, that doesn't actually translate into what the type of business that you think it's gonna translate into. So yeah, you have to look at conversion at the customer level, and then you need to understand the actual quality of the network that they're bringing to your organization if you're gonna hire on an existing loan officer like in a retail org, for example.
And just to understand, that's where you guys come in terms of optimizing that conversion rate.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's our bread and butter.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. And even beyond that, because there's the upfront conversion ratio, right, which is super important, but there's the lifetime customer value that's also really important as well. Yeah. If you're not retaining customers, or if you don't even have the data on what customers you retain, which is another one that many lenders just simply don't have, we have to dig into that, right? Because
I was going to say, a lot of these SaaS metrics like churn and lifetime value really apply here, but I don't think we use those. Yeah, we don't use those terms.
I don't know why. I don't know why. You want to talk about everyone complains about the cost of origination, and yes, personnel is the key contributor to that cost. So we have to talk about how we comp personnel and each person's productivity and value add to the organization. But how else do you bring down the cost of origination? If a second loan is a third of the cost, and I'm spitballing, I don't know the actual numbers, but let's say it's a third of the cost, maybe a fifth, right, of originating a first loan, that's how you solve the cost of origination problem over time. You recapture existing business. So
I think there's a lot of I feel like SaaS is a great model. You just look at it from a long-term perspective. Instead of a month-to-month type of thing, it's okay, every 7 years there's an event, and maybe in between you get a bunch of referrals that subsidize maybe cost of customer acquisition, and maybe even make it negative, so it's actually you're getting paid to acquire that customer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I'm so glad you brought even up referrals, because that's another thing that just so many loan officers just don't do. They just do not ask for customer referrals, and they should be.
I'm glad you brought that up on the conversion rate. I've seen this across so many industries, though, and I always call it a pipeline problem, where people get really excited about the pipeline. And I have always said, I don't care about your pipe. I truly don't care about your pipeline. I care about what your close is. I care about what your conversion rate is. But I don't know what it is in a lot of executives who they just like to see a big pipeline. So they get really excited about ooh, there's all these, you know what I mean? There's all this possibility. Right. But it's possibility does not pay the bills.
It's Jake is I'm going to say it back. It's data, and then knowing which data to use. Because I think that even if you give people the data, they're just what was the total volume? Like, well, hold on, let's go back and talk about these other things we talked about over here. Yeah, but that guy did half that guy's volume, and you made twice as much off him. What? Like, they don't even see that. And I think that's the important part that you bring.
Yeah, but
yeah, it is funny because like we kind of sometimes get lumped into like the old school, sales first like category, and like we are old school in the sense that like we still think relationship is like absolutely central to this business, but. Yeah, I mean, listen to the conversation we've been having. It's like you simply can't do this well if you don't have the data at your fingertips and are willing to make decisions based on what it's actually telling you, not what you want it to tell you. So couldn't agree more.
The number one moat in AI right now, I've said this time and time again, is relationships. And it's not, and it's existing relationships within the networks, because the noise is becoming greater and greater and greater. Like another point that people argue with me about is like, I think cold email is deader than dead. Like, I just don't see its purpose in this world anymore. Like I literally, and I know I could clean this up, but like on my Apple email account, I delete like 200 emails a day. Like I literally just go like, and hit delete, and I don't read, any of them. So it is going to come down to who do you know and that in person. So we only got a few minutes left. We always have one ridiculous question. I really like GPT's ridiculous question for you today.
Oh boy, strap in.
If mortgages had dating profiles, what would a 30-year fixed rate say to make itself irresistible?
Oh gosh!
I want to go next on the answer to this.
I have opinions, but Jake gets to go first.
Goodness, I have no idea. I mean, it's got to be something around. See, this is the problem. I've been married for 10 years and my wife and I like met in person. So I've literally never been on a dating app. So I have no context for like what makes a good dating profile. I don't know. Something about like, I'll be by your side longer than anyone else.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I'm a boomer and I have more experience with, I'm not a boomer, by the way, folks. And I have more experience with dating.
I was going to say that it'd be like, hey, I'm tried and true. I'll stick around for a while. And if you want to replace me in about 7 or 8 years, that's fine with me too.
Okay.
Base got game.
So our question, from our guest last week. So Stephen Winans from Radar was on last week, and he had a question for you, Jake, which is, if there was one question you could get people to stop asking you, what would that question be?
Ooh, and is it related to your dad?
Yeah, that would.
Are you Dale's son?
That definitely could be a contender. Yeah, are you going to be the next Dale? Like, I don't know. I'm just Jake.
Jake.
I'll be transparent and I'll say this one. And
you're here.
Okay, all right. My computer just like totally went crazy. We get asked a lot. And I understand the intent behind the question, but we make available all the training that we do for our clients. It's live, it's personalized to them, right? But we always get the question of like, yes, but can you like put it into a system and we can log like who watched what and how many minutes and did they complete the quizzes? And it's like, it's not to say that none of that matters. We want to make sure that they like have the content. Obviously, that's you can't execute the strategies if you don't know what the strategies are. But it's indicative of this focus on the wrong metric, which is kind of the theme of this conversation, right? Which is like they're always thinking about production instead of conversion, or volume instead of like network quality. It's kind of the same with trainers. A lot of this industry wants to just sort of taskmaster their loan officers and make sure that they completed the module or they passed the quiz. But a loan officer can do all of those things and not change any of how they actually approach a prospective referral partner or a customer. It doesn't mean that they're ultimately going to be giving better value to the person that you're trying to serve, that you're paying them to serve, right? So that's the question that I would love to actually just kind of see go away. And I'd much rather like a lender just like say like, All right, cards on the table. Like, your last client who stood up, what are the results? You know what I mean? Like, I would much rather them put us to the test, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
LMS features. So
yeah, there's no question about it. All right, so we got to wrap up here, but last but not least, our guest next week is the amazing Dana Giorgio. Question for her.
Oh, okay. So I know that she's like really invested in financial literacy for the next generation.
Yes.
So I think it would be fun to ask her, what's the number one myth that her generation has passed on to the next generation so far?
Oh, that's
a good one.
Question. I like
Good
that.
question.
A little saucy, but I think she'll have a good answer for it. So
I would agree. I would agree. Jake, thank you so much for the time. Really,
thank you for having me.
It was a lot of fun.
Thanks to everybody out there who's watching either live or recorded. And we will see you back here next week for episode 12. Have a great week.